Hi, it's Colleen Schmidt from Divination Counseling Service, here to present the full moon of August 9th, 2025, which occurs at 3:54:47 a.m. And I'm going to use the chart for Washington, D.C. So I'm going to use the same format that I've been using, even though this is the D.C. chart and really only effective to the East Coast. The first few minutes I want to talk about what's on the cusps of the Placidus house system. In the Placidus house is not an equal house system. When I use porphyry, which I will use in the other software, those are equal houses. This Placidus is something I'm addicted to, so because I like to do these house cusps. I'll also look a little bit at the aspects going on, but realize that once I get into the aspects, I am referring to the sun and the moon, and that's going to affect everybody. I'm also going to look at the axis of the sun and the moon when it comes to the asteroids, as well as the Aries point, which will affect everybody. This is my second attempt on this. Mercury retrograde has been really killing me this morning. I lost my program when I brought it back. I thought it came back correctly. It did not. So I have to redo the video. So let's start. The first thing I want to talk about is the Chronos on the ascendant. It is not within a degree. It's actually out by about, what did I figure it was? About 9 degrees. 9 minutes, I'm sorry. It's out by about 9 minutes. And right now, Chronos is running with haze. So let's talk about that. In the Washington, D.C. chart, we could look at the fact that the people who are in charge are making bad decisions. Well, a lot of them don't even deserve to be where they are. So with that said, there are a lot of bad decisions being made, and we will notice that. But I want to talk about something that affects us all, okay? And that is the fact that the Ascapulus is running with Chronos, and that's this asteroid right here. It's a health asteroid, okay? So we have a health asteroid running with Chronos and haze, like right almost in the middle. And what that is a doctor. And I want to share my own experience here, as I hurt myself about 2 months ago, and I did not go to a doctor until yesterday. That was because everybody was on my back. And even though I'm healing and I'm doing a lot better, there is some residual swelling and a little bit of tenderness. And it was a sprain, as I suspected. However, because I was a dancer, there's an old injury that got triggered in there, an old stress fracture that has scar tissue on it that is now turned into arthritis. So I went to the doctor and had that taken care of so that people around me could get off my back, okay? I had the x-ray, I'm fine, everything that I thought it was, it was. So part of being an old war horse is these things happen. And so that's my story. I think each of us will have different stories, okay? But please be aware that that does highlight going to a medical professional, seeing a doctor or a nurse practitioner regarding your health issues, okay? So as I move on in this chart, the next thing I'm going to come into is this dependency is off, and I didn't really go into it when I redid the video. I'll look at it, but the first time I did it, there's a dependency, and it could be financial. And the reason why I say that is it's going to show up later, okay, when I go through this chart. There could be a dependency related to finances, as that is coming into. Now it's out by, I'm going to go with 6 minutes. So it's very close, but it's a degree in 6 minutes. So it's 6 minutes out of what I would normally do, but it is something for us to pay attention to. And depending on where you live on the East Coast, that can alter that 1 minute, that 1 degree, okay? So be aware of that. When I look at the next place, I start with 044, and then we have something, Minerva, at 136. Okay, so 136, though it puts it right into the next, right at the beginning of that third house, sits Minerva. Minerva's a lot like Pallas. It has that same strategic quality, but it's also politics, heavy duty. And it could be that there could be things coming to us, because that's a house of communications, through politics. The IC, like the midheaven, will be aspecting the Aries point of the United States chart. No surprise, since the guy who considers himself president is doing things that are really affecting the whole world. What a jerk. Who does he think he is? But that's a whole other thing. And in the meantime, he's affecting the whole world. Mars is slightly off of that. We'll get to Mars later because it's actually in the Sun-Moon axis. That's the anger, the aggression. Okay, so we have this cusping the IC, which is our roots, our families, our personal lives. And they're all affected by what's going on in the world. And I'll get to how they're affected, because that's actually really in the chart. The 5 degrees, 43 minutes, cusping the 5th house, our house of self-expression, has literally 1 minute away, which is a real aspect, Apollon. Now, Apollon is business. So it could be how we express ourselves in business, but it can be the expansion of business. But it's really, again, I'm thinking it's more of how we're conducting ourselves in business. Remember that Apollon is always more than one. Okay, so we have that. We move on and we come to another iffy cuspy, which is this Shiva. And the only reason I'm keeping it in is because, and you can see her right here on the cusp, she's 1302, she's 2 minutes out, okay, because it's 1404, 1302, but she's still close enough that I'm going to bring her up, and the reason why is because she represents rage. And it also could be that we are expressing ourselves in some situations through rage. Now, it's also about destruction of things so that we can rebuild it. Probably what we're going to have to do with our government is rebuild everything, ultimately, because it's being destroyed. But it's, and this is the DC chart, it is the cusp of the 6th house. So it makes me think that this is also occurring in a lot of places of work, where work, manufacturing, or whatever it is that you do, there could be either an overhaul going on, maybe you're withdrawing from that work for a time, so they can redo things. That always works with this one, but it can also be withdrawing from one position to go to get into something else. So, and it is work, it could be work service related. Also watch for rages that affect our health. That's how people have strokes and heart attacks. So you have to be careful of those rages. I'm a person who actually thinks anger is okay because it motivates us. It's a great motivator, but I always talk about how it doesn't come with brains. And so you're much better if you can keep control of the anger. And by the way, anger is in the Sun-Moon axis through and via Mars, which is another reason why I brought this up, because I'm trying to key in things that actually go together in the chart, or kind of pull the theme together. I do want to talk a little bit about Par of Spirit. I'm not really an Arabic person. I think they're interesting as all heck, but in this case, my goodness, 1733 is the IC. 1733 is Part of Spirit, okay? So it's to the minute. And here I want to point out how it's running across from Chronos Hades. I want to point out how it's, again, could be something that happens with our health, that we deal with the health situation in that way, and so it moves us a little bit that way. But it also is that through the bad decisions, where we're going to probably see how bad things are is through our partnerships and our one-on-one encounters. Okay, so Part of Spirit plays a little bit of a role there. We have an 822 Urania right inside of a 739 boundary in the 8th house. This is astrology. It is retrograde. It's also computers, logical thinking. Retrograde to me here simply can mean that maybe you've already been working on it and you're continuing to work on it. But the fact that we're even listening to astrology here, and the fact that the actual full moon happens in 3 days, it's kind of interesting. There's a little retrograde there. You're getting it before it actually happens. So that cusp can be rather important as well. The next thing that, and again, Aries point, midheaven, wow, you know, that just kind of means too that whatever's going on in the United States, it really is affecting the world, although I already knew that, which is sad. Okay, as a matter of fact, Saturn and Neptune are both in the 10th house of the United States chart, which to me is disappointment, and it could be disappointment through the government, although I'm beyond disappointed. But I think, you know, the public is waiting for things they're not getting. They're hearing things they don't want to hear. Nothing is getting verified, cleared up. So that's really accurate. As I move on through the rest of this, and I do want to point this out, there really is nothing in these two houses, and which is the 11th, our associates and our group activities, but our spirituality also. And I think that one of the things that we can talk about with what's going on right now is it's not very spiritual. It's not compassionate, empathetic, none of the above. It's all about let's make money. And what's really sad is that most people, we may be consumers in this country, but we're not all scavengers for money, not like our government is, which is one of the reasons why the people can tend to be so different from the government, because we're not looking for profits and we're not looking to make money other than our jobs. So I think that, you know, that's a whole different take. And we're going to be talking about that as we get into the next sections. Now, the next thing I do want to do, I'm running a little bit quicker than I was, which is probably good. The moon and the sun, I do want to point this out, are at 1659 Leo and Aquarius. Now, 1659 on my other software shows up at 17 degrees, is still within the Aries point because in Uranian, you've got 2.5 degrees. I don't do that for the cusps. I don't do that for a lot of things, but in general, for aspects, you can. Not the smaller ones, I would say keep them tighter, but like the sesquitrots and the quincunx and the semi-squares and the, you know, all of that I would keep tighter. But, you know, for your general oppositions, conjunctions, especially in this case where we're talking about conjunctions, and that's what they are because they're both falling toward the Aries point, we can go out that far. So here, I do want to point out a couple of things. First of all, at the Aries point, we have politics. Now, we already talked about politics as it's on the cusp of the 3rd house. But politics is also at 15 degrees Aquarius, which is the Aries point. Okay. And it puts it right next to the moon in opposition to the sun. It's politics, or it's strategies, okay? I would say those strategies, though, if they work for the people, they're working against something, and if they work for that something, they're working against the people. So if you're talking about a job situation, or if you're talking about a government situation, you want to bear that in mind. I'm going to talk about some things. There's a destructive asteroid here at 16 degrees fixed, 55 minutes, literally 4 minutes off the sun. Also that destructive quality, okay? And what is being destroyed is financial, 2nd house. Our ethics and morals are being affected, 2nd house. There's a great destruction happening here that is causing people to go more out on their own. Okay, so if it's, you know, if it's happening in your company, it's going to cause you to reflect and look at a journey that maybe you have to take on your own. Destruction for reconstruction here and going out on your own is all part of the reconstruction. Okay, it's also a withdrawal. I got to withdraw from certain elements because it's really hard on me. It's bringing me down, you know, that kind of thing. So look for that. I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to run into that again. It's obviously an asteroid that's in the sun-moon axis. As we go to the dial, you get to see a lot more of this because there's a lot at the Aries point right now. We've got Poseidon, we've got Vesta. Okay, so Poseidon, Vesta. Okay, we've got there's a series of asteroids here: Victoria, Pallas. There's our Vesta again. Icarus, which is taking risks. Okay, all in the Aries points, like they're taking risks with the world. Okay, so there's this great energy that surrounds that Aries point at the 15 fixed point. Okay, I'm going to talk just really. Actually, I can do it through looking at the axis. I'm definitely going to have a little bit of a shorter video, which is actually a good thing. Some of the stuff I wanted to look at is if I come to this sun and moon point, okay, and oops, always shifts back no matter what I do. Okay, here we go. We're going up to 59. There it is. Okay, so if you notice already, okay, so this is the sun and moon point, but what does it equal? Oh, this is beautiful, right? It equals Neptune. Deception. Also compassion. But again, Neptune is also illnesses. So for some people that are really affected right here, please be careful of your health. Neptune to the sun can be an illness. Okay? And you do want to look at that. The other thing is we have a Saturn and a Mars there. And by the way, I always say Mars isn't really bad unless it's showing up with Saturn. Then it's a little bit more difficult. Well, this could be heartbreaks. Okay, so we could have some heartbreaks along the way. And there's victory here as well. So Victoria's down here, but sometimes heartbreaks move into victory. Okay, example. We talked a lot about the rage and the destruction that's happening in the DC chart, also in this particular sun position. So this destruction is leading to heartbreak, but ultimately it's the ability to rebuild. We're going to remake ourselves in this country better than we were, and it won't be under this guy. Or it won't have anything to do with this right-wing crap that they keep throwing at us, okay? We the people will recreate, because we the people is what Pluto and Aquarius stands for. It's also what democracy is. And Pluto and Aquarius is a very democracy-oriented placement. Okay, so as we move, we see that we have Neptune, Saturn, Mars, kind of all the malefics, if you will, aspecting that sun and moon. So there is going to be, it's going to be a difficult time. I'm going to say volatile, and I'll show you why in a moment. But it really is a tough period for us. Okay, so I'm going to go back to that sun and moon, and here we have it. Okay, so it brings up Pluto and Sedna, and Sedna is it's really our relationships. Okay, it's a lot about your friends that help us. Friends that don't help us. Okay, so that's really, really important. Okay, so that's a definite factor in here. That was yeah, it's over here. Yeah, this is Chiron, I believe. Oh nope, it's Selena, which is talents. Okay, I just wanted to see that because talents were affected with, I have to go back there again to see it, just to let you see these things that showed up. Here we go. There we go. That's what I wanted to show. Okay, it wasn't even where I wanted because I didn't really want Selena. I really wanted, not Selena, I really, really wanted Zeus. And I want to show you this. This is what I was talking about in the last video. You notice that this is the sun-moon axis right here. You have the Saturn sun, the Saturn moon. You have, we have Jupiter, Mercury, so there will be some good news. But you've got Saturn. This is where you get to pick up all the Saturn. And you see that this is Zeus, which is guns and explosions. It could even be volcanoes. Whatever it is ongoing, my friend. Okay, but let's go back to that original what I talked about with Pluto to Sedna, okay? So, and so these are like, Sedna's like another little planet. And so basically what we're dealing here with is that we're going to see things that will affect us, okay? And I'll get to why that's true. There's something that will tell us that. I'll get there in a minute. Basically, what I'm seeing here is the Astrea, which is something is ongoing. This could be our wars. So all these ceasefire things that are going to happen, like, no, they're not. It's ongoing. But we're also going to see things. But this is also talking about the friends, okay, and who we're bonding with. And we might be excited about some of this bonding, but we have to look at it because we have to accept, are these people like-minded? Are these people truly friends? Or are they people trying to take advantage of us? And I will get into that because that is in this axis. So if we look at this point, this dark red, and then we look at this arrow, we are totally in the sun-moon axis, okay? It pulls in a little Aries point here, which, you know, we'll talk about. But remember, I'm only going to go 1 degree on either side of this to create this axis. So the first thing I want to talk about is I'm going to start up here, and then I kind of go around the chart. And just so that we have the numbers, okay, I'm going to be looking at 16 degrees of, oh, I lost it, 1659 fixed. I'm going to be looking at, here we are, 159 fixed, cardinal. Okay, that's up here. So it's down here, 15, almost 16, 16, almost 17 degrees. And then up here, 1, almost 2 degrees. Okay? Then we come down here, and it's 24, 29. That's why Zeus is in. Okay? And Astrea will pull in the 929, mutable. Okay? So those are our 4 points, 22.5 degrees between each one of our points on the axis. Veracities, which is right up here with Mars, Neptune, Saturn, is reminding us that, and it's retrograde, so it is a reminder that we're not, veracities is we're not getting, we're just not putting it together, okay? So our perceptions are off, okay? So veracities is telling us that our perceptions, there's your Neptune, it's almost like a double whammy on Neptune, and also Poseidon in the Aries point, okay? So Poseidon is in the Aries point. So what you're dealing with is you're dealing with these kind of like, what I want to say, you think something is supposed to be a certain way, but it really doesn't have to be that way. And we can make it better, okay? So there's a lot of deception through this heartbreak that we're going to be going through. Cassandra is in there. So here's the advice issue. You get advice you don't listen to, and you're giving advice that other people are not listening to, okay? So be aware of that right now people may or may not be listening to the advice they're giving. And by the way, Delphi is in there, which means this includes readings, includes oracles, it includes things like astrology, okay? That we're not heeding, but we should. It brings us all the way down, and I did mention victory. There is some victory in this chart, okay? With all the delusion, disillusion, rage, anger, aggression, BS, bad decisions, there will be some victories. The Chase Sappho is interesting because it really goes with this dynamic of our friends and who we're bonding with and this whole Pluto Sedna thing, okay? it's really interesting how we will be chasing people who are like-minded. In other words, we're looking for people who are like-minded, people we can bond with, people we can be friends with. So as I come down, the next one I'm looking at is odd couples. Because one of the things that you're finding out, and this is happening in marriages and long-term relationships where, they're with a trumper and they're like, what? How could I be with somebody who has no ethics and morals, that can vote for a felon, a rapist, somebody who's probably guilty of treason and has sold off secrets? I mean, you got to look at that and you got to say to yourself, wow, where is the similarities between me and them? We don't have the same morals or ethics. So look at that. That's definitely going on. Ironically, I just pulled up, that's from the Aries point. See, these things are like smushing together here. Sheldon is body image, which is more about the sun-moon axis. Hephaestus, please note that that's an Aries. But still everybody, so I just told you something was for everybody anyway. Sheldon is body image. With that stuff at the very beginning about the health, the Hades, Chronos, which could be, bad decisions by authority figures, but it could also be a doctor, and doctors aren't always making bad decisions. They just deal with disease and disease. Sheldon is also could be from some of the other stuff you're going to see in here about body image, meaning maybe it's a great time to lose weight, especially if you have high blood pressure. You might want to look at that. Weight loss, but also look at people. Like, for example, we got a president who's literally not healthy, mentally or physically. That is very visible in the body language. How a person walks, how stooped over he is, how his gait is not all there. This is stuff that I, as a person who trained people physically, it's very easy for me to look at somebody. The joke was I used to go around telling people what instrument they played based on their postures and alignment. Well, that's true for even mental health or physical health. Oh, looking for the red. Okay. The next area is a big one. Okay, and it goes right back to, as I said to you, a scapulus being on the ascendant. And it talks about Shiva, which is that rage, but it's also walking away from something so it can reconstruct. It's also that whole concept of rebuilding, reconstructing after you've torn it down. It's running with the sun, as we talked about. But here's where it starts getting exciting. We have this show up twice. It's going to show up in the sun-moon axis, but it's also going to be present in the Aries axis, which is the con man. Excuse me. This one is seen by Thompson. And what I'm going to ask you to do is look at this, not only in terms of the DC chart, but look at this in your own life. Okay? Are you dealing with somebody? Maybe you're dependent on somebody or something that is a con man. And maybe it's time now to think about going on your own. Maybe realizing that this is a journey that you would prefer to take on your own. As a result of health issues, perhaps, as a result of somebody not being who they present themselves to be, it could be time to go on your own. Valentine and Libitina tells us that what was making you happy or causing you excitement could be bringing you to tears. And maybe not such good excitement is occurring right now. Maybe a lot of tears are happening right now for some of us. A lot of tears. I moved down and I talked about Mars. And this is anger, aggression. And normally I say anger is good because it motivates us to action. But anger has to be thought out because Mars doesn't have a brain. It's totally directed by the drive of the sun. And it's a good time. I mean, it's a sun-Mars, but it's a sun in a counter position to Mars. So be aware of that. Be aware of that. The next one I want to look at is our boundaries can be an issue in relationships. And what I mean by that, I'm talking amour and nemesis, is your weakness might be your love. I love you so much, I've let you get away with that. I loved you so much, I can't believe you crossed all those lines. And that has caused a problem now in my life, Nemesis. Okay? It's also the blame. We'll blame it on that. We're going to blame it on that. You know, I loved you so much, I let you get away with murder. I'm not, you know, it's a blame. It's a blame game thing. And now we have to deal with that fallout. Again, running into the Aries point, this is where it gets tough. Vesta is narcissist. So this could be people who have to do with narcissistic people at their work or with regards to work. But it's also distancing yourself from, make a goal of distancing yourself from narcissistic behavior or narcissists. Okay, that brings us to Astrea, which we talked about, which is eyes and what we see, but also how things are ongoing. Now this is a full moon. It's a reflective chart, not so much predictive as reflective, telling us what to take care of rather than looking towards starting new things in the future. Wiles, now that's also, yes, that's still direct. As I come to Delphi, which is looking at oracles, psychics, Delphi is an oracle, okay, and using oracles. And I definitely think that's big in this chart. So, you know, if you have your favorite psychics, continue to go to them. It is retrograde. It is, things even could come to you in strange ways that relate to the Delphi. And it's like knowing something and then, oh my God, that really did happen, that kind of thing. So we're going to look out for that. Wiles is because we do deal with con people, con men, and it doesn't matter whether it's in the Aries point or if it's in the sun-moon axis as we have it right now with Thompson. But McGregor's in the other, so I can tell you that ahead of time. Basically, you're in that process of dealing with that. You are going to be dealing with people that are quite wily. Wiles is they're not on the up and up, okay? And that's very strong in the chart, and it's one of our repeatable themes, as I've already proven. So then it brings us all the way down to the last asteroid, which is Zeus, which is very much read the same way that this Zeus is read. So it highlights the concept of guns, explosions, wars, earthquakes, although I think that's also Uranus in there. But and that would depend on where you lived. But I would say to you that right now, we, especially as far as these asteroids are concerned, Zeus is also the ability to be excited about something all the way through the end of the project. And it's keeping up that excitement, okay? As well as, but it's also, in order to keep up the excitement throughout a whole project, you also have to have a little bit of restraint to do that. Zeus is also seeds, okay? So people are trying to plant seeds right now. It is retrograde. So I'm not sure how many of the seeds will take. And again, it's a full moon. It's not a new moon. So we have to keep that in mind. I'm going to move along quickly here to the Aries point. And I want to start with the fact that Coin is running with Patsy. So let's get to that. So you'll see how close these are. So here's an Aries point, and here is the Aries point. Okay, so just bear in mind that there, I'm going to leave it there because it makes a nice cross. Coin, and so I'm over here. Okay, so Coin and Patsy tells us that you have to be careful of being a victim regarding money. So this could be a case of those of us that have to go to jobs only because it pays the rent. Okay, so it's sort of like you're allowing yourself to be a victim for the money. Okay, or it could be, I want something so badly, I know this person is overcharging, but I'm a victim, a willing victim. Patsy is a willing victim. When it comes to money, coin, we're talking about willing victims. Okay. Moving down, the next pairing is with an asteroid called Champ, which is, I want to say humiliation. Humiliation with McGregor. It's humiliating, and it comes with the con man. You can be humiliated through a con man. I'm humiliated when I deal with people from outside the country. Because, wow, okay. So, and also just how if you're taken advantage of or used by the con man, it is really humiliating, and it can be very self-destructive. Okay, though it's not a self-destruction like Eros or Williams, it's more related to that I'm an idiot thing. It moves on, Aries point down here to Phaethon, Anubis, and Psyche. That is over here. Okay, and here's Psyche, just to give you an idea, all right? Because Psyche is something I have a glyph for. Anubis is death. Phaethon is a vehicle. The vehicle of death is definitely affecting us. What we're seeing, Astrea, which I already talked about as it's related to the sun-moon axis, is also related here when you think about Phaethon using vehicles of death does affect the psyche and emotional wounding. It's also about people who could be psychic with regards to those things, okay? But I like that if you read it by just words, what it's telling you. And I would say to you, get ready for a lot more war stuff, because I do believe the Astrea is related to the fact that that stuff's still ongoing. Hephaestus, which I think I was explaining, I think that's the one I kind of blew, but it's so close, here we go again, is the odd coupling. Okay, now if we're looking at the United States chart, it could be some of the ethics and morals of some of the people that the guy in charge thinks he should go to bed with, you know, like how they're not on ethically the same page. They don't even have the similar governments. I could go on and on. They're odd couples, and that is going to come to our attention if it hasn't already. Then we go down to in the sun, I missed something, which I want to go through with you because I can. Okay, now it would be 24. Let me just check. Maybe I'm wrong. It's 24, 29. Yeah, it's out. Okay, too bad, because that was a lineup that I wouldn't have mind seeing. Maybe I'm going to see it in another one, so I won't get us too excited yet. What we're looking at is how academia is being used as a scapegoat. Academia with Delbruck. That with what's going on all around us, is a lot of it's being blamed on academia. Okay. And our government, that's easy to see because he keeps picking on the colleges for stupid reasons, for stupid things. And academia is having to bow, basically, as part of the situation. So look at what's happening to academia and how it's being used. And that can be in many ways. Now here, this is where another run-in happens, because it literally stops with the Aries point and then picks up again with the sun-moon axis. So now I get to read the first three. Admetus, Hack, and Letitius tells us that Admetus is like your blockages or the stoppages of something. Hack is a shortcut, and Letitius is the interruptions. And so let me give you this little synopsis. You decide to take a shortcut, you go down an alley, and there's a truck unloading. There's a block of a shortcut that's going to cause you an interruption. Very mundane, very real, and I want you to think along those terms, okay? Because Admetus is a blockage. It's also getting to the bottom of things. And it could be a shortcut to get to the bottom of things is disrupted or is interrupted. It could be a disruption as a result of trying to take a shortcut to get to the bottom of something. But atomitos is the blocks. It's a blockage. So you can think about that in several different ways. We move down, and the next Aries point thing I want to talk about is how we need to brace ourselves for ransom. One of the things that's really upsetting about this particular government that seems to think it's, can change the world now, is that we have to brace ourselves because they hold everybody ransom. How do you think they got academics? How do you think they made a scapegoat of academics? By withholding money. It's called ransom, people. Blackmail would be a good word, but they're using the word ransom, okay? I love that it actually showed up in astrology, and that is exactly what's going on. Lax is also in that astrology, that we're going to be dealing with lax. And I don't care where you are in the world, this is going to affect you. Lax. There's going to be a lack of something. This trade disruption is really going to affect the world. And the sad part is this guy actually thinks he's smart, which is like, are you kidding me? But what are you going to do? Oh, I know what you're going to do. You're going to pray. You're going to meditate, particularly before you do any risk taking or involving any risks. Icarus, okay? I got to be honest with you. Some figures are getting too close to the sun and they will burn their rings. They just will, but we have to wait for that. Basically what I'm seeing here is prayer and meditation regarding risks, Icarus, smiley. Please be careful of getting involved with people who smile because they can actualize things. And again, it's a risk. We don't know where these people stand. Is this McGregor or Thompson? Is this somebody who's like-minded? We don't know. Every relationship right now could be a risk. So you want to be more aware of people and what it is they're trying to actualize or bring about with Merlin. Vesta, as I pointed out, is already in that axis, and I did discuss it. Vestas are goals, our work, but it's also distance, things that are at a distance, or being distant. People with strong Vestas tend to be very work-oriented, so they tend to be a little bit cold and distant. Not that that's a bad thing, it's just a part of who they are. Astrea, we've already discussed, is very much a part of this chart in many ways, and that's actually not part of the Aries point, though. Delphi is. I had to come further down. It is retrograde. Continue listening to those psychics, to the oracles. I mentioned that it was in here, but it would be people that you've already been engaging with or listening to. It is retrograde. It might even be thinking back to things you've already heard, okay? Wiles is telling me that you got to be careful of the people that we're dealing with. McGregor, Thompson, the con men. You have to be careful. These are wily figures. Hebe, big one. Please be careful of what you're enabling. I know that we're willing patsies because of money, but you got to be careful. And we got con men everywhere, but you got to be careful because Hebe says that, we're enabling. How are we enabling? We got to look at that. If you're involved, like especially those relationships that are not going well, how are you enabling that relationship? That is something you need to think about. Because Amor told us we didn't have good boundaries. Hebe's telling us we're enabling. Those are really important things. It's things that we really want to take a look at, okay? The last thing I'm going to leave you with, and I think it's really important, this is a really dynamic full moon, and one of the reasons why is, as I discussed earlier, it has a lot to do with the Saturn, Mars, and Neptune, and how they equal what's happening with the Sun, Moon. And remember that it's disappointment. Remember that it's that there is an aspect to both the Sun and the Moon when it comes to Neptune, Saturn, and Mars. And Saturn and Mars, so we have Saturn, Neptune disappointments. We've got Saturn and Mars, which is heartbreak or heartache. Okay, so just be mindful that there's more to come this month, but I do believe because Mercury, okay, and just taking a peek at Mercury, is also running, so there's going to be some strong messaging, okay, because Vulcanus is there, strong messaging that's going to be coming through, and it's going to come through our connection. Sorry, I didn't get that right there it is, okay? So there it is, okay? But that's also an Achilles heel for us. So here again, we have to look at ourselves. You know, it's really interesting. We're going through this whole thing politically, but in many ways, the reason we can never go back is because that's how we got here. And we have to own up to our own responsibilities. For example, we are a country of consumers. That's not healthy. We have to learn to be more self-sustaining. And I'm not referring to self-sustaining, meaning that the United States needs to build up more manufacturing and all that. No. Self-sustaining means do it for yourself. I'm a big I'm the person who makes Christmas gifts. I'm the person who makes their clothes, who cans the garden, the food from the garden. Self-sustaining means that we don't need to be a willing victim because of money. Just something to leave you with. With that said, I want to thank you for watching this video. Thank you for the support of this channel. We don't have an SEO, so Google's not putting me out there. So whatever I get, I'm just getting through you. And I want to thank you for it. And with that all said, until we meet again, I wish you all only happy